I'm reviewing this anime called Food Wars. I like to call it Starvation Wars because there's hardly any food. First scene is someone cooking peanut butter and squid together. Peanuts aren't even real nuts, they're legumes. Peanut butter is full of omega-6s with zero nutritional value. It shouldn't even be legal to call it butter. Butter should be legally reserved for use in real dairy. Not pasteurized dairy. Only raw butter should be called butter. The guy acts like there's a food that peanut butter is meant to go with. As if you're meant to consume it and there's a right way to do it. Mate, you aren't slick trying to condition me like that. There's no right way to eat peanut butter because it isn't real food. Idiot. You have perfectly good squid. Then you destroy it with fire and peanut butter. This is 18 seconds into the anime and I already hate it. What we have here is fried rice, and I'm not sure what the other ingredients are, but fried rice has nothing but sugar and arsenic. It's fried in vegetable oils most likely, which increases your risk for atherosclerosis since it hardens at body temperatures, unlike with animal fats. You're frying in a Teflon pan and that's going to poison you, not just from leaching into the food, but also from breathing it in. Swell. What the hell are they so amazed about? There's hardly any food there. There's farmed shrimp most likely, which are the cockroaches of the sea, and maybe those yellow things are eggs, but that's like 1% of the meal. Peas are seeds, full of lectins and phytic acid. So you have some cooked arsenic with almost 0% animal nutrition. Why would anyone enjoy being malnourished? This is a pretty bad meal, even compared to cooked food standards. He even flicks his hair back before he said it, like he gave God's gift to humanity. The guy says bon appetit, which originally means good luck with getting that digested, so he accidentally warns them that the meal is going to be hard to digest. Yes, the lectins and fiber in the rice and peas are going to be hard to digest. It's funny that they portray arsenic-laden rice as tasting so good that it gives you an orgasm, because you eat this way, you actually become infertile. More conditioning, trying to convince you that rice is delicious. He asks for meat and tofu, so he asks for food and then non-food in his meal. Tofu is a new thing to Asians. They had soy sauce, but no tofu. Tofu is cooked, processed, and sulfur-extracted garbage, just so you know. Soybeans are so toxic that they have to ferment it with salt. They use charcoal for cooking. Charcoal releases mercury vapors when you burn it. This is crying about how he lost a 2-person fried rice cooking competition. Why does it matter how many times you flip seeds in a pan? It only helps if it had actual nutrition in it. Then it would mean that there's less time for you to destroy the nutrients because it's in the air. But rice is nothing but sugar anyway. If you wanted the rice to taste better, you should have thrown it out and replaced it with a steak. The lady brags about running first-rate hotels, but what you have here is a flower called broccoli on the plate for some reason and some cut-up steak. They do this thing in media where they present cooked muscle meat as a luxury dish. It's such brainwash, like, so amazing a steak dinner which isn't that expensive and has very little nutritional value compared to oysters. You could have a tray of oysters and that would have more nutritional value and taste better than this entire table, with no need for so-called professional chefs. Wines and alcohol in general is always pasteurized, but this is red wine on the right side of the screen, and the difference between red wine and white wine is that red wine includes liquids from extracted seeds, so it's even more toxic. Wine is full of tannins, but otherwise alcohol destroys your nerve cells, so what is luxurious about it? What is first rate about this entire table? I'm certain that the chefs put the leaves and flowers in dishes, not for eating but for decoration. Yeah, you're paying extra for decoration, not nutrition, no nothing. The hotels probably don't even bother using organic ingredients because you're ignorant enough to pay for this shit, so why not cheap out even more? It's a joke that first-rate places even sell soups, which what I see is on the right there. Soups are 80 to 95% water. Just an absolute scam. It's funny that she calls another restaurant trash for serving what she deems inferior food, but from what I've seen, it's about on the same level as her hotel's food. The only difference is that at least the restaurant has the courtesy not to charge as high as her so-called first-rate hotels. This purple-haired woman is a pompous moron. Literally the same could be said as your hotels. What we have here is potatoes wrapped in bacon. The customers eat a bite and they think the combination of food is what makes it delicious, but the bacon is doing all the work. You like the meat part of the dish, not the plant part. It's the same thing with sandwiches, burgers, grilled cheeses, and sushi. The plant part soaks up the meat flavor while you're cooking or chewing it, and then you think the whole dish is delicious when you could just have the animal food by itself. Look, the anime even proves my point. They're screaming about the meat juices which flavored the potatoes. The protagonist Soma is sent to this elite cooking school with a graduation rate of less than 10%, but it's a joke because what are they actually learning to do? They're not learning to make the most nutritious meals like liver tartare. They're making dishes for taste and aesthetics. They learn knife skills which aren't needed, how to make pastries which have negative nutritional value, kitchen management for working, so this is about business, not nourishment. And basically dishes that are inferior in taste and nutrition to raw food. A farmer or fisherman has more worth than every chef that ever existed. Farmers and fishermen actually produce food in a raw, natural form, and chefs do nothing but deform food into these funny shapes and sizes, and then act like they added value to food when all they did was trick people into giving them money. They created this cooking culture and then people copy them and waste time destroying their own food at home. If people kept their diet simple and only did basic stuff like steaks and eggs, then they would be infinitely healthier and happier compared to being influenced and wasting resources on these so-called advanced dishes. Again, this anime tries to condition you into thinking that there's good broths. Broth is soup with meat that has been simmering in it. You would take the leftover bones and meat and boil it in a container that's 95% water to extract what little nutrition you couldn't reach from it. Nowadays, people take perfectly good pieces of whole meat and boil it, but that wasn't the case in any ideal scenario. Apparently one of the chefs made oyster porridge. So, you took one of the cleanest and healthiest, if not the healthiest foods on earth, which are oysters, and then you blended it in with porridge. Porridge is boiled legumes or grains in water or milk. Legumes and grains are sprayed with glyphosate and they definitely use municipal water for the base, not clean spring water or even filtered water, which means it's full of toxins. If they use milk, then it was pasteurized, meaning it's going to cause atherosclerosis, degenerative arthritis, and osteoporosis because of the unusable calcium. People say that with pasteurized dairy, you're at least getting some animal nutrition, but you create toxins when you pasteurize high quality food. Dairy has a lot of calcium, which means it's going to cause a lot of problems when it's cooked. Firstly, phosphate has been destroyed by the pasteurization, which is required for calcium digestion, and the calcium itself has been cauterized, which means it hardens and calcifies your arteries and joints, causing atherosclerosis and degenerative arthritis. The calcium is unusable, so you become deficient in calcium, causing osteoporosis. Pasteurization and homogenization is a shit package that always arrives together. So, if this milk is pasteurized, it's homogenized. XO, which is a harmful enzyme, is allowed through the gut walls because it enters with the fat globules, meaning it replaces the plasminogens in your heart, causing atherosclerosis. Pasteurization destroys lactase, which is used for the milk sugar digestion, and turns lactose into beta lactose, making it get into the bloodstream much quicker, causing hypoglycemia. Raw milk was used for treating diabetes, but pasteurized milk can cause diabetes. People have this idea that if you destroy food, it's better that the food starts off in a super nutritious state, then at least you're getting some nutrients. But no, if you start with a superfood like raw dairy and pasteurize it, then it becomes a super toxin. It starts off as one of the best foods on earth to one of the worst. People think heat makes a superfood turn into a normal food, but no. Superfood turns into a super poison in the case of dairy when you cook it. So this Tibetan monk wants to eat, but his religion doesn't allow him because he's supposed to be starving as an example to others. They call it fasting to put a nice ring on it instead of starving, but it's the same thing. The anime accidentally admits that starving is religious nonsense that goes against your natural instincts. He even looks emaciated, just look at his ribcage. It's exactly what you expect a starving person to look like. The desperation in his eyes, that he just wants to eat, but the two holding him want him to starve, to be supposedly a good example to others. Pure mental illness. It's a cult of suffering, just like I said. His natural senses finally break through, and he tells him to shut up because he just wants to eat. He abandons his faith and eats because that's what he naturally wants to do, and that's the healthiest thing he could do. It's someone breaking free from a cult and doing what they naturally want to do. This is the most amazing scene in the anime so far. I get that it's insignificant to most people and it's a joke about someone's food being so good that they abandoned their lifelong faith. But what I see is a cult member being deprogrammed. I agree that being with a woman, specifically with the most attractive woman you can get, that's getting over 50 nutrients in a diet and doesn't follow the mainstream, will make you a better man. That applies to every man, including all those religious morons who make vows of chastity because they think it somehow makes them better than the rest of us. There's no such thing as getting better at cooking because there's no such thing as adding heat to something and getting more nutrients. You have food that's at 100% nutrition, and no matter what shape or form you put it in, the raw ingredients they start with can't get any better with extra nutrition, only worse. Right away, the premise is nonsense. They have this cooking competition where they bring out the ingredients to test the chefs, but there's barely any food here. There's eggs and pasteurized cheese, which the latter I don't count as food, it's poison. So there's only eggs here. The rest is man-made vegetables, cow toxins from carrots, growth retardants from potatoes, and GMO corn. The only thing you can make is raw eggs for drinking because there's almost nothing here. What do you mean the main ingredient is eggs? The only ingredient is eggs. The other stuff you put on the table should be fed to livestock or composted. The pasteurized cheese needs to be destroyed completely. I don't want any animals to get into it or for it to pollute the environment. You know how nuclear waste is sealed and buried deep underground where no one can get to it? That's what needs to happen to all pasteurized dairy. Love how he doesn't pay attention to her despite her title. That's exactly how you should treat people's titles. It's not something that you can naturally sense. Just a man-made title that means nothing naturally. Funny how this anime hypes her as some legend who eats eggs every day. I also ate eggs every day for a while. Do I get a cool title for doing that? It's not as if those egg dishes were more nutritious than what the average person eats. They just add an idiot surcharge to people going to restaurants. Sorry about the picture being so small. It's how it looks like to me when I'm watching it. First of all, meat or fish broth is slave food. I've gone over this. Gelatin and gelatin products are made through highly cooked and processed pulverized bone and cartilage. Waste products basically. If the gelatin is hydrolyzed, it comes from chemical extraction. Gelatin prevents the absorption of minerals, causing brittle or too dense bones. You'll get mineral imbalances and your body will suffer all over. You can get bone overgrowths and deformities from eating gelatin. Gelatin causes allergic reactions and anaphylaxis. Gelatin causes water retention as well. Soy sauce is concentrated in salt and chemistry because it's a preservative. Soy causes water retention, irritability, headaches, weight loss, and muscle loss. So, the schoolmaster makes a speech about how the students have learned about cooking theory, nutrition, and public health for the past 3 years. I can't wait for the anime to showcase the vast knowledge of nutrition, such as plants not having over 50 nutrients, water-soluble vitamins, being extremely heat sensitive, glucose interfering with vitamin C digestion, and pasteurized dairy causing atherosclerosis, osteoporosis, and degenerative arthritis. I can't wait for the scene where they show they care for public health by not cooking vegetable oils, which promotes atherosclerosis. I can't wait for the scene where they say that raw liver and raw oysters are the healthiest foods on earth, and that you should eat plenty of raw animal fats such as raw butter, raw cream, and raw bone marrow. I can't wait for the scene where they ban salt, MSG, sauces, and all the other additives from the dishes. So, he says the moment you step in the kitchen, you're responsible for producing extraordinary food. But that's the issue, you don't produce anything. You take what the actual productive people like farmers and fishermen have created, and then you proceed to destroy it. Nothing is extraordinary about cooking. It's all smoke and mirrors. Just by being a chef, you already failed the responsibility of even creating mediocre food. You want to produce extraordinary food? Become a fisherman or farmer, because chefs do the opposite of creation. So this guy is a world famous chef called the chef that never smiles. Okay, why would you listen to anything they have to say? They clearly don't understand the meaning of life or how to be happy. I get that they're trying to portray an aura of superiority as if he's looking down upon everyone else because he's so much more skilled at cooking, but to me, someone like that in real life is a loser because they're never happy. If you can't be happy in real life, you're wasting your life. Look at those dark eye circles. I'm not familiar with this dish, so I had to look it up. We have beef, red wine, which is pasteurized and full of tannins, beef stock because he wanted to flavor the garbage ingredients, carrots full of carrot toxins, onions which are toxic, garlic which is super toxic, motikani, a toxic herb, and more toxic onions and mushrooms which have the texture of meat. Earlier they said they learned about nutrition, but the first dish they have to cook has very little food in it. Weird. Why is she worried about frying some mushroom with butter? Is she worried that there isn't enough butter to get atherosclerosis? I'm kidding, of course. The butter is already pasteurized. I was waiting for a good screenshot, but cutting boards are extremely toxic because of the glue they use to make them. I made a video about them already. He uses canned mackerel, which could be wild, would be good if they were. It's definitely pasteurized and you get heavy metal poisoning from a can if you eat canned food. Later he says it was in its own liquid, which is great. He adds breadcrumbs and onions to an egg, then he adds it to mackerel to form a burger patty. He calls it a steak, but I would only consider it a steak if it was purely meat. If you mix things in, it's a burger patty. The reason people added seeds and vegetables to meat was as filler to extend it when it didn't have as much meat. It's implied he does this because there's little meat left in the kitchen. Ponzu is soy sauce with mirin, which is rice alcohol. It is kelp, which is an indigestible sea vegetable that's even more indigestible than land vegetables and causes dehydration of the brain. You can digest 2% of it. Ponzu has katsuobushi, which is simmered, smoked, and fermented skipjack tuna, which is wild but pretty much cooked to death, so little nutritional value. Ponzu is made up of 3 toxic ingredients and a 4th, which is also toxic but has a little nutrition. He's drinking out of a styrofoam cup, which is made out of styrene, a plastic. He's getting microplastics, and styrene is toxic. It can cause depression, headaches, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and fatigue. Turns out he's drinking rice juice. So, he's drinking arsenic juice out of a styrene container, as if he wasn't poisoning himself enough. The woman is wearing some sort of necklace. Jewelry is extremely toxic, and the heavy metals will leach into your skin if you wear them. It looks like some fake costume jewelry, which is even more full of lead, cadmium, and nickel, because the manufacturers strive to use cheap materials. Amberjack can be farmed or wild caught, but since this is based on Japan, it's farmed, so the fish is unhealthy. Daikon is just a toxic vegetable that causes skin irritation. The difference between soups and stews is that the base is thicker with less water, but it's still food that's diluted in water to stretch it out. Don't you find it interesting how this is supposed to be a top cooking school, but they serve slave food to the students? These are confirmed to be school uniforms that they're wearing. School uniforms are full of PFAS. They're going to get liver damage, thyroid disease, and infertility from wearing those all the time. Council of 10 what? Council of 10 diseased and infertile students. The guy's wearing glasses, which ruins your eyesight. They're eye crutches, and that means your eyesight will get worse over the years, and you'll keep needing stronger and stronger prescriptions. Bad eyesight comes from lack of vitamin A from retinol. This guy is wearing an apron with a printed logo. Printed logos have volatile organic compounds, phthalates, heavy metals, and formaldehyde. Volatile organic compounds cause respiratory problems such as difficulty of breathing. Consider when they cook over charcoal, they release mercury vapors, and when they cook using natural gas, they breathe in benzene. It's a deadly combination. This guy wants to enjoy his youth, but ironically, he's not going to be able to reproduce himself because of the phthalates from the apron he's going to be wearing every day for cooking. He hangs out in the attic, and this is an old dormitory, so it's guaranteed he's being exposed to asbestos. Asbestos outgasses just like plastic, and attics have very poor ventilation, so consider the accumulation of poisons that he's breathing in every time he visits the attic. You can get asbestosis, which is when you breathe in so many asbestos fibers that your lungs get scarred and inflamed. Smoked foods are full of carbon monoxides. The more fat there is in homogeneous cheese, the greater chance of heart disease because exo in the fat globules depletes your plasmogens and replaces it in your heart. Cheese is high in calcium, so you're going to get calcification of your arteries and joints from the unusable and now dangerous calcium. The jerky is salted with no water-soluble vitamins or enzymes because it's dehydrated. Why is this guy saying that he can do no wrong? He just put you on the path to atherosclerosis and degenerative arthritis with all that cooked calcium. I noticed that they're on a wooden floor, which is coated with PFAS. The carpet in the right hand bottom corner is outgassing microplastics. What we have is some man-made vegetables from the garden that's resting on a napkin. It's a waste of a napkin, just have it on a plate. Absolute bullshit propaganda. I could understand that if they misinterpret a good taste, if they splash sauces and flavorings on top of the vegetables, but no way would you take some rabbit food and bite into it and think that's delicious. No, not totally awesome, you absolute moron. All of you guys eating that must have flunked out of nutrition class, which is what I would say if nutrition classes actually taught anything useful. So this girl is going to strangle some wild game for fresh meat, and I think that's awesome. Mackerel is predominantly wild caught, so I'll give him that. And Chinese pepper is actually citrus fruit, unrelated to black pepper, and that's good too. If it's fried in butter, it's going to cause atherosclerosis. If it's fried in vegetable oils, it's also going to cause atherosclerosis. So hopefully it was fried in a non-dairy animal fat. It was pan fried, so Teflon was released into the air and is also now in the food. There's no such thing as preparing food in nature outside of butchering an animal. You take some ingredients into the kitchen and afterwards you reduce the nutrition and taste of the food. I could buy some raw oysters, sliced liver, or sea urchins, and that would be more delicious and nutritious than any so-called food that these chefs could prepare. The only time I want to hear about preparing food is you slicing up some meat or shucking oysters, then plating it. Chefs don't create or improve food, they only destroy it. Cooking culture is horrendous, and all I see when I hear count of 10 are some evildoers. Just like I said before, they use natural gas and I didn't see a lighter, so this is automatic ignition, but it doesn't matter because it releases toxins and you actually breathe it in when it ignites. You end up breathing in benzene, which is toxic to your nervous and respiratory system. Looks like he's pouring in organic olive oil for frying. It doesn't matter if it's organic or not. Okay, great, you're not getting some pesticides, but still, plant oils oxidize when cooked. Consuming oxidized food causes organ damage. I looked up the recipe and in addition to mackerel and olive oil, he uses salted kelp tea, salted kelp, rice and mitsuba. Salted kelp tea is hot water that's had an indigestible vegetable boiled in it and salted. How is this healthy? I don't know. Then there's kelp that's been salted. Okay. Indigestible and toxic. Rice is just sugar, arsenic, and fiber. Mitsuba is wild parsley, great for abortions. Oh, I get it now. That's his rival, and he's aiming for number 1 on the council of tools, and he's trying to poison him as much as possible. That's genius, in fact. Well done, Soma. I agree that you should have used salmon because pretty much all salmon is farmed and that will poison him even more. But why would you give it to F1 when everyone else didn't try the other guy's dish? The whole point for him is to try a dish after you tried his. Why would you make so many portions? Ah, I get it. You want to poison all your rivals, not just one. Smart, Soma. Smart. What you have there is perfectly good fish that's been fried in olive oil on a Teflon pan that now has carcinogenic brown crust around it making it harder to adjust. You have some indigestible vegetables covered in rocks with municipal water, flavored by those very same indigestible vegetables to wash it down. If that wasn't enough to cause poisoning and infertility, it's finished off with white parsley as abortion patient. I hope that answered your question. The girl says, if you cook something like this, you're gonna make us all hungry. And I agree. I knew she was the smartest person in the room because if you eat this, you're hardly going to be fed. There's hardly any nutrients, and you're going to expend a lot detoxing and healing yourself. So it's very little net gain in nutrition from eating the whole meal. Feed this to someone and they will go hungry. There we go. Cheap so-called food for the slaves. He's sharpening a knife which releases metal dust into the air, and he's going to breathe it in and irritate his lungs. I have never sharpened a knife in my life. Looks like they were drinking soda from plastic bottles, so some microplastics from the container where you pour the drinks out of, and then into another plastic container made out of styrene. Why would you have a stew society anything? You do understand that's like calling yourself peasant food society, right? Stew is a slightly better version of soup. So you're running a society that makes peasant food and you make yourself up to be prestigious. Absolutely disgusting, and that's not going to fool me or anyone else who knows anything about food. Funny that they call themselves noble, but nobles wouldn't eat stews if they weren't stupid, so they should say that they have a long and peasant history. Tomatoes are fruit, not vegetables. Okay, so we start off with some misinformation. What is amazing about this? You have toxic skin irritating daikon, cabbage which causes gas and bloating, and nightshades known as tomatoes. Zero nutrients in that basket. Amazing would be if you brought some raw oysters. You're wearing a hat because you're scared of the sun, and you need sunlight to be healthy. This is just seeds with seaweed on top. How is this nourishing to anyone? Sweet soy sauce is full of sugar, salt, and MSG. Cheese is pasteurized and salted, and is going to cause atherosclerosis. Seaweed is algae. Humans are supposed to eat animals, not algae. Garlic kills brain cells, but since you're eating this shit, you probably don't have to worry about that. Miso is 30% salt, and it's really going to mess you out. The honey is pasteurized and has glyphosate in it. Barley is grass, and okay, green tea isn't as oxidized as black tea, but it's still toxic. They're drinking from styrene containers, which I don't understand why, since this is in a garden and they could have just brought glasses to drink from. Nice environmental destruction. Well, it's destructive to produce a so-called food that she's serving anyway, but just wanted to point that out. What is high-end about this? On the left is pasta with an egg yolk on top, and on the right is pasta with rice on top. The top left is rice with meat on top. The right looks like beef with peas on top. Good stuff on top of garbage, or bad stuff on top of good stuff. High-end food doesn't have any garbage. What is manly about rice bowls? You can't develop into a man or a woman eating only rice. Rice is for slaves doing slave things. Disgusting to see people talk about destroying good food. You can destroy steak because it's just muscle meat, but you're destroying perfectly good shellfish that could easily be eaten raw. It annoys me when people put meat inside or on top of plants, and then they say the whole meal is delicious. Why don't you just eat the meat by itself with more of it, rather than putting it on top of rice, which is nothing but sugar and arsenic? There's no justification for this. Wagyu beef is fattier, but it's grain-fed, so it's not necessarily healthier than regular beef. You should eat grass-fed beef and get your fat source from bone marrow or anything else. It's not healthy to eat animals that aren't living on their natural diets. She talks about how her meat is smoked and how it affects the flavor, as if that's what's important. Just an idiot who only cares about flavor, not nutrition. Talk about the carbon monoxides that go into the meat when you smoke it. Carbon monoxides are highly toxic. And then you just eat this shit, you fucking moron. First, fry it to give it a carcinogenic brown crust and to coat it with Teflon. Scoop the butter-like substance they just destroyed even more and put it on top of the soon-to-be carcinogenic meat. If only there was some way to eat meat without losing the meat juices. Instead, we cover it up with melted atherosclerosis to seal the juices in. We have to make sure that there isn't even a little bit of raw nutrition left and it's destroyed all the way through, so we put it in the oven. She doesn't know anything about what the meat needs. All she did was take something that people of value made, called farmers, and then she destroyed it. She reduced the bioavailability of the nutrients and created toxins and added additional toxins in the form of pasteurized dairy and Teflon. Just an arrogant chef who's up her own ass. Okay, so she sticks a thermometer into the meat and says it's perfect at 65 degrees Celsius. Okay, let's see, at 36.11 Celsius, you started destroying all the enzymes. At 36.66 Celsius, you start destroying the minerals. At 43.33 Celsius, you cauterize the phosphorus, so that's nice and unusable for the body. At 44.44 Celsius, you start altering the vitamins. At 48.88 Celsius, you start destroying the B vitamins. At 50 Celsius, you destroyed all the vitamin A, and at 58.33 Celsius, you destroyed 90% of the vitamin E. I wouldn't say perfect. You could have gone at a little higher temperatures and destroyed all the enzyme activity at 71.11 Celsius. I hate when chefs act like the people who respect ingredients, when their job is to destroy them. It's religious spirituality that's completely unjustified, completely delusional, and only cares about taste. If you would respect an animal's life, you would maximize the amount of nutrition you get from it. But of course you don't. Chefs not only destroy food but add plants with anti-nutrients on top and around it, so they get less nutrients in every way possible. It's basically stolen valor from people who actually produce food, like farmers and fishermen. Also, you shouldn't be caressing any grains. Grains are the enemy. You should actually be cursing grains for what they have done to humanity. If you're going in the direction of fiber, you're going in the wrong direction. Okay, but what are you actually mastering when you become a master chef? You're not mastering creating more nutrition. You're making man-made dishes. They alter foods for taste, not for nutrition. Someone who goes to the beach and picks up one oyster has infinitely more value than all the chefs in the world combined. Why is chef even a profession? There should be another farmer or fisherman in this world instead. I feel incredible disrespect towards anyone who's a master chef because they provide negative value to the world and basically wasted their life. Garlic rice with melted butter is a brain cell destroying plant with arsenic covered in melted atherosclerosis. I agree that you should do what you want, but that's not a message that you would get from eating rice. If you would eat raw oysters and raw sea urchins, That's when you would realize the meaning of life. You should watch me or someone like me, and you would understand that you should do exactly what you want to do. I looked at the criteria of what makes a top restaurant, and most of the criteria is absolute crap. First, we have exceptional ingredients which I can just order from my fishmonger or butcher. And Australia has pretty good meat for average people, so I can actually get high quality meat from my grocery store. I know what to buy, so from the start, I already have the best ingredients without going to a restaurant. There's presentation, which has nothing to do with the quality of the meal. There's staff, which the only staff I even interact with when ordering food is the delivery man, if I even do talk to him. It's totally irrelevant to me. There's decor, waiter to table ratio, comfortable seating, and atmosphere. Most of this stuff doesn't have anything to do with food. I buy some oysters and I mug everything that every restaurant has to offer. So, being a top restaurant means nothing. Restaurants are scams. How are the elite chefs when they don't do anything to improve food? Elite food destroyers, great. Cuisine is just food with man-made culture. There can be unique foods specific to regions, but that has nothing to do with cooking and everything to do with the raw ingredients available, like the wildlife. What is illustrious about this resort? There's no food produced here. Illustrious would be a hunting reserve or an oyster farm. There's nothing respectable that happens here. So, they're given a task to go and forage for their own ingredients, and look at what's available. Just green leaves. Nothing on the left looks like food, but that's what you would find in nature. Zero nutritional value and poisonous to the body. You instinctively understand, and that's the bitterness you're tasting. You only want to use a little bit of it for presentation, like you put a leaf on top of soup for aesthetics, not for its actual taste. Why do you want to start looking for greens? How does that even contribute to anything? People want to talk about the mental health crisis, and the foliage on the left is the cause of it. What do you mean there was no motion wasted? Every motion spent cooking is a waste of motion so far. They got pretty good butchering skills and they're wasting them by cooking duck. They should have just made some duck sashimi and be done with it. The motions used to manufacture frying pans were a waste. The motions used to make gas stoves was a waste, and the uniforms as well were wasted motions. Uniforms are a way for organizations to brainwash people, such as they conform to a standard of behavior. I get that they don't want to dirty their regular clothes, but they could just wear an apron. All of these people here are wasting their youth learning how to become professional food destroyers. So in that sense, they're wasting their emotions. So they said that the salsa is made out of anchovies and parsley and is a staple food. The anchovies are wild, so that's great. But the parsley is guaranteed miscarriages if you eat this every day. There's definitely been a case out there somewhere in Italy where a woman ate this sort of salsa and had a miscarriage, and she never understands why she got it. I get that people want to have pride in their national cuisine, but nations don't even exist in nature, and this pride is already getting people hurt. Parsley was used to endorse abortions, just like flowers, and that's because parsley is toxic and therefore poisons you. Yes, I understand that's actually diced chives that they're using for the salsa, but I just wanted to give the commentary on it anyway. This says that citrus and pepper is a Japanese flavor, which makes as much sense as saying kangaroo is a Japanese flavor. Citrus comes from India, China, and Burma. Black pepper comes from India and chili pepper comes from the Americas. Yes, meat was banned for 1000 years in Japan because of Buddhism, so don't ever talk to me about respecting your religion. Religions exist to control people, and one of the ways they do it is by restricting meat. It's never restricting garbage food like seeds, it always targets animal products. I also don't want to hear about respecting historical figures or whatever. A lot of these people did nothing but bring suffering to people around them. I know you're tired of me saying that soy sauce is heavily salted and full of MSG, because it is, so I'll tell you something else. Even MSG-free soy sauce is full of glutamate, which is part of MSG, that's created as part of the fermentation process. Soy is a legume that's full of phytic acid, enzyme inhibitors, oxalic acid, and lectins, and these are reduced by fermentation. But soy is also full of plant estrogens that aren't removed by fermentation. You can't trust people to make it properly, even though there's no such thing as making soy for human consumption properly. But you get what I mean. It's funny that this is supposed to be a Japanese dish, but the wild mustard species comes from the Mediterranean and the Himalayas. Mustard is full of glucosinolates, which break down into sulfur-containing compounds called isothiocyanolates when the plant is damaged, which have a bitter taste. People are so fucking stupid that they think the isothiocyanolates give health benefits when it's the plant defending itself by poisoning you. The bitterness is a way for the plants to get you to stop hurting it, but people somehow became addicted to it in small amounts. Black pepper comes from India for a start, so how is this a Japanese dish? It's full of saffron, a phytochemical that damages your liver. The honey probably comes from a plastic container, so it's full of microplastics. You also can't really control where bees pollinate, so it's probably from GMO crops. It's pasteurized, so you're getting 100% of the glycation instead of 10% when you eat raw honey. The flower in the corner of the cutting board proves my point earlier. Plants are decoration. What we have here is a cheesy pizza, so atherosclerosis on top of grain sludge. He has rice crackers, which has rice, water, and salt in it. It's possible it was baked, but it could still have vegetable oils in it anyway, even if it wasn't fried in oil, so you should be careful about eating those. He uses the rice crackers for breading to deep fry some fish. Sad. She blows on a fried fish because it's so hot that it can actually scald your throat and cause asphyxiation from the swelling. Someone died because they ate a fish cake so hot that it burnt his throat and left him unable to breathe, so eating hot foods is extremely dangerous. Bus drivers have one of the highest instances of musculoskeletal disorders. Buses produce 5 to 10 times the amount of toxic fumes than other vehicles. So this guy was running around and now he's collapsed on the floor. This is what happened to fine deputies. The same would happen to you if you ran all day. The difference is fine deputies ran more, so he died. So this girl's looking forward to resting and eating, which is strange because she was running around all day looking for ingredients. But now she's saying the reward is being comfortable. I thought exercise was enjoyable. That should have been the reward in of itself. Don't you want to run around outside some more? They're trying to put an aura of refinement onto salt by saying that someone can tell where the salt is from based on the taste. The anime is trying to brainwash you into believing that salt is a luxury item, like wine. Like only a refined individual has this god tongue. Both are trash. Salt is a rock, and it'll always be rock, and you're stupid for eating rocks. Whoever wrote this scene, you ain't slick. There's nothing beautiful about vegetables. What you have is rabbit food. Carotoxins from the man-made carrots on the left, and man-made vegetable sticks of death on the right, called asparagus. Asparagus is a weed that's hard to get rid of once you plant it. Incredibly destructive to the environment and your health. You eat this, and you'll become lifeless. This is a problem with watching media. They always try to gaslight you. You see these plants that suppress your hunger, and then people tell you that they look beautiful, and they show anime characters enjoying eating these so-called foods. Not once have they talked about nutrition in this anime. They'll probably get it wrong, but it just says everything that they said they had nutrition classes for 3 years, but don't even mention one nutrient. It's all flavor this and flavor that. All these plants taste disgusting except the man-made corn on the left. The nutrients are all underwhelming, but of course the narrator doesn't want to bring that up. Chefs create dishes with negative value and they call themselves masters because they supposedly know how to do it properly. Just a joke, man. What do you mean good? If you picked meat, it would be good. This is bad. No. Carotoxins and sugar, bad. No. Neither one. So, you understand that oxidation is bad, and then you proceed to cook in vegetable oils, which oxidize. Great logic there. This is my point. Chefs don't care about nutrients. They just care about shallow garbage like visuals of food. You want food to look good? Throw out all the vegetables into the garden for the actual herbivores and get meat. What new light on legumes? Did you find out that when you cook it and add sauces and mix it with other ingredients that it actually tastes good because you do everything to cover up the natural taste of legumes? The only new light should be discovering all the anti-nutrients in legumes. There's no such thing as elevating a nutrient-deficient, pesticide-ridden, poisonous plant and making it good for human consumption. He makes the nutrients from your meal disappear. Love how she says rock salt like there's non-rock salts. They're all rocks. Why does it matter if it's slow, medium, or fast roasted? You set it 120 degrees, meaning you destroyed everything in those tomatoes. They would at least be hydrating if you ate them raw, but no. You find every way to destroy your plants. Alright, that's just about it for this anime.